Hey guys, LevelCap here, and that title isn't a joke. Due Process is an early access indie FPS game in the same vein as Rainbow Six Siege, CSGO, and SWAT 4. But its procedurally generated maps and fascinating economy system set it apart in some really significant ways. Now when it comes to the core mode design, it's similar to what we've seen before in other competitive shooters. One team attacks, the other team defends, there's a bomb that can be planted or defused. It's a fairly standard bomb defusal mode that doesn't take a lot of liberties in that specific area. However, unlike almost every other major FPS of the last, I think forever, Due Process's maps are all procedurally generated. Every week, the developers refresh the existing maps with a new set of 20 or so maps. Right now, there are 3 main tile sets: Kill House, C-Store, and Factory. The tile sets serve as environmental themes for each map. Each tile set is configured with multiple variations per update, so you'll play different versions of Kill House, C-Store, and Factory from one match to the next. Now, Kill House is a shooting range with wood walls and a maze-like layout. C-Store is a convenience store with more hard cover, and Factory is, a factory, and overall the simplest of the tile sets. And regardless of the random generation of each map, the tile sets themselves have a very distinct style and feel to how each round plays out. And every weekly update adds new configurations of these tile sets. Basically, no 2 matches will have the exact same map layout week to week. So throughout the week, you can dive in and maybe learn the general layout of the new maps, but you throw all that knowledge out the window with the next update and start memorizing the maps all over again. Now, considering that map knowledge is such a massive deal in other tactical shooters, you might think that procedurally generated maps would be a bad thing. But the intent is to give all players equal footing every week, which puts a big emphasis on your personal skill and mechanics. You'll be forced to focus more on your gunplay and in-the-moment strategy, and while it can be fun to rely on map knowledge, it can also have massive hindrances to newcomers. Someone getting into Siege or CSGO today is going to be absolutely destroyed by veteran players, even if they're on equal footing with their FPS skills, simply because knowing all the angles and routes on Dust 2 or Bank is just a huge advantage, much more valuable than your general FPS skills. By evening that playing field, Due Process forces veteran players to focus more on mechanical skills and fast planning. It gives new players a chance to get into the game without needing a wealth of existing knowledge. That being said, you can learn the maps to a certain extent, and one thing that really helps getting a grip on the map layouts is the game's tactical map. At any point during a round, you pull up the TAC map and get a real-time overhead view of the entire play area. You can also freehand draw all of your tactics and, questionable suggestions on the map with your mouse. This system is, of course, prone to some hilarious abuse, and I think the devs seriously need to consider implementing a streamer mode. That being said, it is an incredibly intuitive and engaging system that I wish more games had. Now, when it comes to how a match actually plays, each round begins with a loadout phase. Both teams have a stockpile of weapons, gadgets, and ammo that they pull from. However, supplies don't replenish between rounds. If you pull a shotgun off the wall and lose it in the first round, that shotgun is gone for the rest of the match. There's a real economy to how you utilize the stockpile. The first round or two, maybe you bring in some shotguns and pistols to feel the enemy team out. Then in the final few rounds, you go all in, busting out the assault rifles and breach charges. It's a surprisingly fun system that offers a lot of flexibility in the game's meta. Unlike CSGO, there's no pistol round per se that has ripple effect on subsequent rounds. If you want, you can go in real heavy on round 1 and just hope you win without any major casualties so you keep all your weapons, but you are still limited by how many gadgets and crazy weapons that you can bring at once. It's a bit of a contrast to a game like Siege that gives you all the tools and toys to your heart's desire every round. In Due Process, you have to keep a mental inventory of what the enemy team has thrown at you. As the stockpiles dwindle, the game can quickly evolve from full-on gadget warfare to a gunplay-focused tactical experience. It's crazy how diverse each round can feel, and the inventory system, although simple in concept, is actually brilliant when it comes to game diversity and strategy. Now, when it comes to the actual combat, this is where some of the janky things come into play with Due Process. And remember, these are critiques of an early access game, so it's possible possible and even likely that many of the things I mentioned here could be totally fine when the final product releases. First up, due process doesn't run particularly well, and that has a ripple effect throughout the entire experience. There's all sorts of hitches, stutters, and FPS dips during matches that it's honestly kind of hard to gauge if I'm missing shots because my aim is off, or if the game is just glitching out. When it is running well though, due process does show a lot of promise, but when it's not, it's simply just infuriating. Now this is an issue among many others that the devs have promised to address, so I don't think it'll leave early access with such significant problems. But for the here and now, they are nasty issues that do hurt the experience. Now the shooting mechanics themselves feel a little disconnected from my inputs. There are two aim modes, brace and ADS. Both modes offer the same recoil and precision, but you zoom in more when ADS. And some weapons don't give you a targeting aid like a crosshair unless you actually ADS. It's a novel idea and cuts down on the run and gun spam, but it feels tacked on and doesn't serve a useful purpose other than making some weapons easier to use in extremely close quarters. To be honest, the devs could remove the brace system entirely. In most games, the brace option would just be your standard hipfire, and I think that would work fine in due process. I guess the idea is that the devs want you to have to aim precisely in close quarters, but in every situation like that, I'd rather just hipfire. Now the recoil system is also pretty jerky. Guns don't smoothly sway or shake from one shot to the next, they jump. That can make staying on target extremely challenging, and while tough recoil control can be a really fun element to master with any tactical FPS, I feel like it needs to be much more refined in this game. When you couple the unpredictable jerky recoil with the visual noise caused by muzzle flashes and hit indicators, many gunfights seem to boil down to spraying and praying. Now, to their credit, the devs have tweaked the muzzle flashes since I started working on this video, so it's not like they won't be improved over time. Now, the final janky area is this game's asymmetrical balance. Defenders have less health than the attackers, but they get a more diverse range of weapons. In theory, this could work well. Defenders could be set up behind cover, and the attackers would probably take a few hits just breaking through a door. However, in practice, I found that switching rounds has a noticeable impact on how combat feels, which makes sense given the health pools, but I just don't think the difference really works that well. For defenders, it can feel like you're stuck with a pea shooter against enemies that have laser death rifles. For attackers, you can gun down multiple targets with ease, and I found it really weird switching between the two playstyles. So what if the devs do really look into all these things and start balancing the game and sorting out all the issues to a perfection? Does it really have what it takes to be the next Siege? Well, I think it's entirely possible. Due process is just as tactical and complex as a game like Siege, and in ways that I really like without the burden of needing to memorize a dozen different maps and even more operators. It's an accessible tactical game with a ton of depth, and the devs are doing everything that they can to make it a fair and competitive experience. I'm not here to say that Due Process is the next esports game, but I do think that it has the potential to be incredibly successful, and that it does a lot to differentiate itself from a crowd that's quickly becoming saturated with lookalikes. Overall, I'm deeply impressed with the design elements in Due Process. My guess is most people won't take it seriously at first glance because of the cartoony visuals, but as I've said in other videos, games don't have to look realistic to be tactical. Having a more distinct art style gives Due Process a lot of freedom, especially when it comes to procedurally generated maps. It also makes stuff like visibility and enemy silhouettes way more readable, which is always a plus in my book. Right now, the biggest roadblocks to the game's success are its performance and balance. It doesn't really matter if the devs nail only one of those. Without the other one, nobody will want to play it seriously. As a casual experience, I think the game is in a good enough state to be enjoyable. I had a great time recording the footage for this video, and in general, I had a blast playing the game. But if you're expecting to take it seriously, you're going to be disappointed until they fix the performance issues and further refine the balance. Competitive shooters need to be polished to perfection. I have faith that Due Process will get there one day, but it's not quite there yet. Balance requires feedback and data from players. The devs seem very open to suggestions, and as I said, all of the issues I've raised are on their radar. So it's not like they're resistant to change or improving the game. It's just going to take some time. The player Playerbase will have to establish metas and learn all the deeper mechanics before the devs can really mold the game into a more perfect version of itself. As much as I've critiqued the game's balance, it's certainly close to being in a good place. It's just that final 10% of nudging here and there that really makes the big difference. If you want to have your foot in the door for the game's early development, then you can actually just grab it now and start playing. If not, you can always wait for it to leave early access. I'm certainly excited to follow this game as it progresses, and I hope it succeeds. Let me know if you guys have played Due Process in the comments down below, and if so, what do you think of it? Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe for more content like this down the road, and I'll see you next time. This is LevelCap signing off.